Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I want to start with a question that might change everything you think you know about sugar. What if the healthiest sugar on Earth doesn't come from a sugarcane field, doesn't come from sugar beets, and doesn't need a factory to process it? What if it comes directly from a tree, dripping straight from the bark, naturally sweet and packed with nutrients? When you think of sugar, you think of the white stuff in bags. You think of diabetes, obesity, tooth decay. And you should, because refined sugar is genuinely destroying our health. But I'm about to introduce you to a different kind of sugar. A sugar that flows from certain trees like tears. A sugar that ancient civilizations built their entire economies around. A sugar that's so nutritious, communities have survived on it during famines. A sugar that modern science is now discovering might be one of the healthiest sweeteners on the planet. I'm talking about tree sugars, natural saps and nectars that have been feeding humanity for thousands of years. And the most important of these comes from a tree that most people have never heard of, but that once covered vast areas of the earth. Today, we're going on a journey through ancient forests, lost civilizations, and modern laboratories. We're going to discover why indigenous people called certain trees the mother and the life giver. We're going to learn how a single tree can produce 12 gallons of sweet liquid in just one season. And we're going to uncover why this incredible natural resource was almost completely erased from modern awareness. This is the story of tree sugar, particularly maple sugar, date palm sugar, coconut palm sugar, and birch sugar, and why these ancient superfoods disappeared from our diet. Let's begin. Our journey starts in the vast forests of North America, long before European colonization. Picture this. It's late winter, February, or early March. The ground is still covered with snow, but the days are getting longer and slightly warmer, and something magical is happening inside the maple trees. The discovery, a 10,000-year-old tradition. According to Iroquois legend, the discovery of maple sugar was an accident. A chief threw his tomahawk into a maple tree one winter evening. The next morning, he pulled it out, and clear liquid began dripping from the wound. His wife, who was boiling meat for dinner, used this liquid instead of water. When the family ate that night, the meat was deliciously sweet. Whether or not this legend is true, one thing is certain. Indigenous peoples of North America, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Abenaki, Mi'kmaq, and many others, have been tapping maple trees and making maple sugar for at least 10,000 years. How maple sugar works? Nature's miracle. Here's what's happening inside a maple tree in early spring, and it's absolutely fascinating. During summer and fall, maple trees photosynthesize. They use sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugar, sucrose. They store this sugar in their roots for the winter. When spring approaches and temperatures fluctuate, freezing at night, thawing during the day, something incredible happens. The freeze-thaw cycle creates pressure inside the tree. During the day, when temperatures rise above freezing, the tree draws water up from the roots, mixing it with the stored sugar. This creates sap, a slightly sweet liquid that's about 2% sugar. During the night, when temperatures drop below freezing, this process stops. If you drill a small hole into the tree during this time and insert a tap, the sap will flow out naturally. One mature sugar maple tree can produce 10 to 20 gallons of sap in a single season, and the tree is completely unharmed by this process. But here's the remarkable part. This isn't just sugar water. Maple sap contains over 24 different antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and organic acids. It contains manganese, riboflavin, zinc, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. From sap to sugar, the traditional way now. 20 gallons of sap might sound like a lot, but remember, it's only 2% sugar. To make maple sugar or maple syrup, you need to boil away the water. Indigenous peoples perfected this process over thousands of years. They would collect sap in birch bark containers, then pour it into large wooden troughs. They would heat rocks in fire until they were red hot, then drop these rocks into the sap. The hot rocks would boil the water away, leaving behind concentrated maple syrup. It takes approximately 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. And if you keep boiling the syrup, stirring it constantly, it eventually crystallizes into pure maple sugar. This maple sugar was precious. It was one of the few sources of sweetness available to northern indigenous peoples. But more importantly, it was nutritious. Unlike refined white sugar, which is just empty calories, maple sugar contains manganese. essential for bone health and wound healing. Riboflavin, important for energy production. Zinc, crucial for immune function. Magnesium, necessary for over 300 biochemical reactions in your body. Calcium, vital for bones and teeth. Potassium, important for heart function. Over 67 different polyphenols, powerful antioxidants that fight inflammation. The maple sugar economy. Before European colonization, indigenous communities in the northeastern forests had an entire economy built around maple sugar. They would establish sugar camps, temporary villages in the maple groves, every spring. Entire extended families would move to these camps for 4 to 6 weeks. This was called the sugar moon, or maple moon. It was one of the most important times of the year. Children learned the traditions from their elders. Stories were told around fires. It was a time of community, celebration, and gratitude to the trees. The Anishinaabe people called maple trees Ninatigug, our trees. They had ceremonies to thank the trees before tapping them. They never took more than the tree could give. They viewed the sap as a gift, not a resource to be exploited. Communities would make enough maple sugar to last the entire year. They packed it into birch bark containers called mokocks. This sugar became their primary sweetener, their medicine, their trading commodity, and their survival food. During long winters, when other food was scarce, maple sugar provided quick energy and essential nutrients. During famines, communities survived on maple sugar dissolved in water. It wasn't just a treat, it was life itself. What makes maple sugar healthy? Modern nutritional science has now confirmed what indigenous peoples always knew. Maple sugar is fundamentally different from refined sugar. Yes, both are sweet. Yes, both contain calories. But that's where the similarity ends. White sugar is 99.9% pure sucrose. It's been stripped of everything else. It spikes your blood sugar rapidly, provides no nutrients, and can contribute to inflammation, diabetes, and obesity when consumed in large amounts. Maple sugar, on the other hand, has a lower glycemic index, meaning it doesn't spike your blood sugar as dramatically. The minerals and antioxidants it contains actually provide health benefits. Studies have shown that the antioxidants in maple syrup and maple sugar can reduce inflammation in the body, protect cells from damage, support liver health, may help prevent certain types of cancer, support healthy gut bacteria. One compound found uniquely in maple syrup called quebecol, named after Quebec, Canada, where much maple syrup research happens, forms during the boiling process and has powerful antioxidant properties. Another compound, called inulin, acts as a prebiotic, feeding the good bacteria in your gut, the near disappearance of maple sugar. So if maple sugar is this incredible, why doesn't everyone use it instead of white sugar? Here's where the story gets sad and revealing about how our food system works. When European colonizers arrived in North America, they were amazed by maple sugar. French missionaries wrote extensively about it in the 1600s. British colonists adopted the practice enthusiastically. For a while, maple sugar was more common than cane sugar in many northern regions, but then several things happened. First, the Industrial Revolution, 1800s. Cane sugar plantations in the Caribbean and South America, worked by enslaved people, could produce sugar much more cheaply than the labor-intensive process of making maple sugar. As transportation improved, cheap cane sugar flooded the market. Second, the destruction of forests. As settlers moved west, they clear-cut millions of acres of forest, including massive maple groves. Between 1850 and 1950, it's estimated that 90% of old-growth maple forests in North America were destroyed. Third, the rise of corn syrup, 1970s. When scientists figured out how to make high-fructose corn syrup from cheap commodity corn, even cane sugar became expensive. Corn syrup cost pennies to produce and could be made in unlimited quantities. It replaced sugar in thousands of products. Fourth, time and convenience. Making maple sugar takes time, patience, and skill. Modern consumers wanted instant everything. Corporations wanted ingredients they could produce year-round in controlled facilities, not something that depended on weather and trees. By the mid-1900s, maple sugar had gone from being a staple food to a rare specialty item. Today, real maple syrup costs $40, $60 per gallon, far more than most people are willing to pay. Many people have never even tasted real maple syrup. They've only had artificial pancake syrup made from corn syrup and artificial flavors. plus antioxidants, flavonoids, carotenoids, and phenolic acid, compounds that fight inflammation and protect your cells. The traditional diet, living on dates. Here's something that will blow your mind. Throughout history, entire communities in the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa lived primarily on dates and milk. That was their diet. Dates for breakfast, dates for lunch, dates for dinner. Sometimes with milk, sometimes with water, sometimes alone. Bedouin tribes would travel through the desert for weeks, carrying only dates and water. Desert travelers could survive indefinitely on just dates and camel milk, and many did, for generations. How is this possible? How can people live on what's essentially sugar? The answer is that date sugar is different. Yes, dates are high in natural sugars, glucose, fructose, and sucrose. But these sugars are packaged with fiber, minerals, and antioxidants. The fiber slows down sugar absorption, preventing the blood sugar spikes you'd get from refined sugar. The minerals support your body's functions. The antioxidants protect your cells. In fact, studies have shown that despite their high sugar content, dates have a low to medium glycemic index. They don't cause the rapid blood sugar spikes that refined sugar does. Date sugar and date syrup. In traditional Middle Eastern cuisine, dates weren't just eaten whole. They were also processed into sugar and syrup. Date sugar is made by drying dates completely and then grinding them into a powder. Unlike most sugars, date sugar still contains all the fiber and nutrients of the original fruit. It doesn't dissolve well in liquids, but it's excellent for baking and sprinkling on foods. Date syrup, also called date honey or silan in Arabic, is made by soaking dates, extracting the sweet liquid, and then simmering it until thick. This creates a rich, dark syrup with an incredible depth of flavor. Complex, sweet, slightly fruity, with notes of caramel and molasses. Ancient civilizations used date syrup the way we use sugar or corn syrup today. In desserts, as a sweetener for drinks, mixed with medicine to make it more palatable, and even as a preservative. The date palm's central role. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi, written around 1750 BCE, had specific laws about date palms, laws about their ownership, their care, and penalties for damaging someone else's trees. This shows how economically important these trees were. Ancient Egyptians used dates in winemaking, in baking bread, and as offerings to the gods. Date palms appear in Egyptian hieroglyphics and art throughout their civilization. In Islamic tradition, dates have special significance. The Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said, "A family with dates never goes hungry." Breaking a fast with dates is a tradition that continues today during Ramadan. The Quran mentions date palms over 20 times, always in positive contexts. The date palm wasn't just food, it was everything. The trunk was used for construction. The leaves were woven into baskets, mats, and roof coverings. The fiber was made into rope. The seeds were ground up as animal feed or fuel. And the fruit, the sweet, life-sustaining fruit, fed millions of people for thousands of years. Why date sugar stayed regional. Unlike maple sugar, date sugar never really disappeared. It's still used extensively in Middle Eastern and North African cuisine. So why didn't it spread globally like cane sugar did? Several reasons. Climate limitations. Date palms only grow in very specific conditions. Hot, dry climates with access to groundwater. You can't grow them in most parts of the world. Production scale. While individual trees are productive, dates require more labor to harvest and process than sugarcane. Sugarcane can be harvested mechanically and processed in enormous factories. Dates still require human hands for harvesting. Cultural associations. By the time global trade expanded, Middle Eastern and Islamic cultures were often viewed with suspicion or hostility by Western colonial powers. Products associated with these cultures weren't actively promoted. Taste and texture. Date sugar and date syrup have strong, distinct flavors. They don't taste neutral like white sugar. Food manufacturers prefer neutral sweeteners that don't affect product flavor. So let's bring this all together. For thousands of years, trees gave humanity natural sugars. Maple trees in the northern forests, date palms in the desert, coconut palms in the tropics, birch trees across the north. These trees were literally life givers. They provided not just calories, but nutrition, minerals, antioxidants, compounds that supported health. Communities built their lives around these trees. They developed sophisticated techniques for harvesting sustainably. They created ceremonies and traditions that honored the trees and maintained ecological balance. They passed this knowledge down through generations. And then, in just 150 years, a blink of an eye in human history, we almost completely forgot about all of this. We replaced diverse, nutritious, sustainably harvested tree sugars with monoculture plantations of sugarcane, industrial refineries that stripped every nutrient, and finally with corn syrup made from crops grown with massive chemical inputs. We told ourselves this was progress. It was more efficient, more convenient, cheaper. But we're now paying the price for that efficiency with our health. Diabetes, obesity, heart disease, inflammation. These epidemics are directly linked to our consumption of refined sugars. Meanwhile, the knowledge nearly died. Indigenous peoples were displaced from their lands and discouraged from traditional practices. Forests were cut down. Traditional artisans had no market for their products. A generation grew up never tasting real maple syrup, never hearing about coconut sugar, never learning that trees could give sweetness. But, and this is the hopeful part, the knowledge didn't die completely. Some people kept the traditions alive. Some forests remained. And now there's a revival. More people are rediscovering these ancient superfoods. Scientists are confirming what traditional peoples always knew. Small producers are making tree sugars again. Consumers are choosing quality over convenience, nutrition over price. This revival is still tiny. Tree sugars are still maybe 1 to 2% of global sugar consumption, but it's growing. And more importantly, it represents a shift in consciousness, a recognition that the old ways weren't backwards, they were wisdom. A recognition that our health is connected to the health of forests and trees. A recognition that we need to rebuild our relationship with the natural world. The natural sugar that fixes your health wasn't erased by accident. It was erased by deliberate economic and cultural forces, colonialism, industrialization, corporate consolidation, aggressive marketing. These forces prioritized profit over health, convenience over sustainability, uniformity over diversity. But these forces don't have to win. Every time you choose real maple syrup over pancake syrup, every time you use date sugar instead of white sugar, every time you support a local beekeeper or a sustainable coconut farmer, you're voting for a different kind of world. You're saying, I want real food. I want to know where my food comes from. I want to support sustainable practices. I want connection with nature, not just convenience. And that choice matters. It matters for your health. It matters for the environment. It matters for the preservation of traditional knowledge. It matters for the forests and the trees. And it matters for future generations who deserve to inherit a world where forests still stand, where traditional knowledge is still valued, where health is prioritized over profit. The trees are still here. The knowledge is being recovered. The choice is ours. So here's my challenge to you. This week, go to a store, a health food store, a farmer's market, or even just a well-stocked grocery store, and buy one of these tree sugars. Buy real maple syrup or date sugar or coconut sugar. Take it home. Use it. Taste the difference. Think about the tree it came from, the hands that harvested it, the tradition it represents. And then decide, is this something you want to be part of? Do you want to be part of the revival of this ancient knowledge? Do you want your food choices to support health, sustainability, and connection with nature? I think the answer will be yes. Because once you taste real food, once you understand its story, once you feel that connection, you can't go back to the fake stuff. You won't want to. The natural sugar that fixes your health was never truly erased. It was just hidden, waiting for us to remember. So let's remember, let's reclaim this knowledge, let's honor the trees, and let's build a healthier future, one sweet choice at a time. Thanks for watching this long video all the way to the end. If you found this valuable, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and leave a comment. I'd love to know. Have you tried any of these tree sugars? What's your experience been? Do you have traditional knowledge about foods in your own family or culture? I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay healthy, and stay connected.